Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'll wait just a minute before we start, but we thought we would go ahead and let everyone kind of uh, get a minute to get situated.
Hmm. It says the event will start soon on my LinkedIn.
Oh, let's see. Maybe it
I,
doesn't
I
yet
think.
go because it's not right at. Maybe it's live here,
Mhm.
but it's not yet there.
There you go.
Time will tell.
It's 13
Yep,
hours.
we are on.
Oh, yeah, perfect. All right, good. Good, good. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If it's your first time joining us, this is She Means Business. This is, what would we call this? A web series that Olga and I have created because we love covering topics, workplace topics, essentially, and topics that pertain to your career. And as career coaches, obviously, this is our bread and butter. This is what we focus on a regular basis. And if you are interested, this is a monthly series that we do. And every month we cover a different topic. Today's topic is toxic cultures. And it's really looking at identifying toxic cultures. It's identifying it before you get into a toxic culture, but also looking to see, are you in a toxic culture now? I feel like that's been a long monologue. So with that, maybe I will just explain introduce myself if it's for those of you that are the first time, and then I'm going to throw it over to Olga to do the same. So as I mentioned, Olga and I both are career coaches, and we do focus on this. I know I come from the world, my background comes from journalism and marketing, and I became a coach 5 years ago and focusing primarily on career and career change. And yeah, I think that's good enough. If you're interested, feel free to stalk me more on LinkedIn or to set up a call. With that, Olga, please take it over.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to say hello to Amit. He's been writing to us. Amit from India.
Wonderful.
Thanks for joining us. Uh, and yes, my name is Olga, and I am a career coach. But at the same time, I'm a recovering head of communications. I spent most of my life in corporate. I have been coaching for 10 years as a passion project, and over the last year, I concentrate solely on coaching, and I work with people in their midlife, trying to help them understand what to do with their career and their life. And the topic for me is so important because I've been in the situations of interviews a lot of times, and the hindsight is a great thing. So when I look back, I'm like, oh, I've spotted that, or I should have acted on this insight. But many times I didn't, and that's why we thought, well, that's a good topic for us to have a conversation about and to help people spot the toxic culture. So Susan and I decided we're going to be sharing some of our stories and then looking at where we would have done things differently. But while we're doing this, I want to ask those who are joining us online, how do you spot a toxic culture? What's your approach before you join the company? What do you look for? What are the smoking signs? If you can type it in the messages, that will help us a lot, because we will be able to then touch upon those as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think because there's so many signs, right? And I think it's like you said, hindsight. We see so much in hindsight that
hmm,
I know I work with clients a lot on this, and I know you do too. It's when they are going for a new role, it's really analyzing. Okay, not just is this a good fit for you in terms of the role itself, but is this a good company for you? Does the culture align with you? And really analyzing, kind of breaking apart and analyzing their experiences, all their experiences with that company, which is you most commonly, have those experiences through an interview process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So shall we start with the story?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I don't know about you, I always find that it's really helpful to see how other people have experienced things in their own life and what's been clear to them. Um, Olga, do you have a particular story that really sticks out to where, and maybe you didn't see it in that moment of it being kind of yellow or red flags, but when you were in an interview process, did you have a moment where you now realize, oh yeah, like I completely missed those signs?
Yeah, I do. And when I look back at it, I'm thinking, what were you thinking? And I'll share what I was thinking because I was seeing all the signs. I knew them, but I was interpreting them to my favor, which is really interesting. So I was interviewed for this large company, and the interview process was going fairly quick. You know, I got to talk to the head of talent, the SE suite representative, and then they said, "Yeah, really like you. Progressing to the second phase, you need to talk to the CEO." It did take a while to set up a meeting, which is okay because CEOs are busy people, and they also wanted for me to talk to someone else from the C-suite.
I'm
And
quite curious, just while you're on the topic, how long do you think is like long versus not long? Because we are talking about C-suite, so as you said, it is about being busy, but is it
sometimes up to a month.
okay?
They can't find a spot in their calendar because they always travel and so on. And yeah, and I was ready to wait for up to a month, but it did happen within a month.
Okay.
And then I came to talk to the CEO, and I was excited because I felt it was progressing well, and I read the role profile and I thought, amazing, this is the company for me. And then I was supposed to have 45 max minutes with the CEO because they're busy people. So I came in and we sat down and we talked, and rather he talked, and it lasted for an hour and a half. And
So wait, it was originally supposed to be like 45 minutes max, and then it went to an hour and a half.
yes, and I was thinking, oh my God, they're really interested in me. They are already briefing me on the job because he was sharing with me how he wants things to be done or how he wants to see things in the company and so on. So I was taking this as a briefing to me, and I was thinking, yes, I actually nailed the job. You know, he wouldn't have spent an hour and a half with me
Explaining everything and
explaining everything, right?
yeah.
So I was totally blindsided by this, and it's like I didn't see it as a smoking sign. And then I had an interview with another C-suite person, and we had a very friendly conversation about authentic leadership. Oh, my favorite hobby horse, you know, authentic leadership. I can talk a lot about it, and that's what I started doing. What I didn't do, I didn't ask questions. What makes it so important to you? You know, why are we talking about authentic leadership? How is leadership in this company? Do you believe it's authentic? You know, all of these questions I was not asking because they hit my, you know, my sweet spot, authentic leadership, and I just talked about it.
So you were talking. So you were more so. So you more so spent than the hour and a half talking about. They were integrating you, talking about kind of their vision for the company, where they wanted, briefing you on where they've been, where they're going, and then they got you started on a topic that you love. And I'm the same. You know, when I get on a topic that I love to talk about, I can go to town.
Yeah.
Why was this?
It was already a second executive, right, that was talking to me, and he started me on the authentic leadership.
Why was this? Because on paper, actually, that sounds great. So you had a cool conversation. You actually got to get briefed, you thought you had the, great, everything's working out. You also talked with the other C-suite about a topic that you enjoyed. Why was this? Why was this a flag? Why was this a yellow red flag in the end?
That's a very good question. So this is just to illustrate how innocent situation can turn around at you so quickly. So when I started working for the company, I realized that the CEO is like this. He likes. Hang on a second. Something happened to our streaming, so I refreshed it. So the CEO likes to lecture, and there's no authentic leadership in lecturing. And that's why I was asked about authentic leadership, and I was asked, how do you bring it up?
Okay.
But I missed that smoking sign that it wasn't an academic conversation. It was sort of crying for help in that question. And I guess I should have been paying more attention to the people I was talking with, rather than to myself getting excited. Oh, this is going really well. I am getting this job. Would I change my mind not to join the company? I probably wouldn't, but I would have been more prepared coming in, or I would have liked to have made a conscious decision. Yes, this is what I am joining, and this is what I'll need to be addressing and working on, and I shouldn't get upset to discover that it's not there. But it's just an example how we get we create our own story at the interview, and we forget to focus on the company and those who interview us, and just focus on ourselves.
Yeah, because what you were focused on, it's an interview, you were there to impress. You're also like, oh yeah, I've got this in the bag. And it wasn't
to get the job.
Yeah. And I think but this is such a common thing. I think that when you're kind of a job seeker, when you have this kind of idea that you're a job seeker, you're focused on getting a job rather than this analyzation. Is this a good company for me? Does this align with my expectations of how a workplace should be? I know how a workplace that I need to in order to thrive in. And so for you were mentioning, like, in hindsight, you then realize, oh, they briefed me, they talked a lot, they were doing a lot of lecturing, but there wasn't that much of this kind of authentic leadership, and there wasn't this much when it came to this, the way that you saw how you would want a company to be, essentially.
Yeah. So they lectured, they briefed, we had a conversation about authentic leadership, but I didn't go deeper and didn't ask my questions of what makes it important to you. Is it a pain point or something that needs to be developed? I didn't ask those questions in the interview, but they could have brought quite a lot of insights. So I would say sort of the biggest takeaway is you get it's natural. You get very kind of one-way focused at the interview, and you forget that this is you interviewing them as well. So I think the prep, I mean, obviously I didn't know that the conversation was going to be going around authentic leadership there, but coming in with prepped questions, but not the questions to impress, like, how did you manage to have a EBITDA, at this level, blah, 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 but also questions like, well, how do you think feedback is handled? Or can you give an example of what happens if there is a mistake made, or if someone makes the wrong call, how is it handled culturally? Those types of questions. Because I'm in comms, I usually like to ask So what do people think about comms? Is it a slides beautifying function, or what is it? And then people have a chuckle, but then they're like, oh, actually, we need to answer, and you get a lot from this curveball questions
Yeah.
to
Because,
understand
yeah,
what
it's maybe
it is.
something that a C-suite person has never asked themselves. I don't know how the rest of the company views comms. That's a great
Hmm.
question, but
Hmm. But then you get an authentic answer rather than kind of
yeah.
the annual report bite size, what the company
Yeah.
performance is and so on.
I was
Yeah.
kind of curious. You were mentioned because I didn't forget that you said that even in hindsight, you still would take the job. Um, because sometimes I think people think that, oh, we see that there's a toxic culture, we should run for the hills. But I know you've said this before when we've talked, I've said that the same as well. I would have still taken some of the jobs, even after identifying in an interview they were toxic. For you, why did you make that decision?
Uh, why did I make the decision to take that job?
Yeah,
Hmm.
despite like even if you were to see
Hmm.
see the smoking signs like the for what they were.
Okay, so if I saw it for what they were, I probably would have still taken the job because I would go like, oh my god, there's so much to do in my area where I am, sort of bringing up the authentic leadership, or working to create an authentic culture and so on, because that's what I do. But
So
I wouldn't.
you saw it actually as a challenge.
Yeah, because I like fixing things.
Mm,
So and that's a challenge. The what would have been good for me is coming in knowing it's a challenge and prepping myself for this challenge, rather than coming in and thinking everything is fine and then constantly bumping your head against the glass walls, put it this way, because
yeah.
you can't get out. And
I
or
guess it's like versus going in with your eyes wide open versus going in blindfolded.
yeah, and also your entry strategies, building, thinking before you join how you're gonna have your boundaries set up uh, from from the get go, because
Mhm.
then it's much more difficult to be fighting for your boundaries afterwards. So I think that would have been the hindsight that I had. I wish I had, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're making a mindful decision, and I think I'm sure you do that as well. That's how we work with our clients, right? We help them research as much as possible, and during the interview, and then take a mindful decision.
Yeah.
Because
And
look,
an informed decision because yeah, exactly. You have all of I mean, you can't know everything, but you have a lot of the parts looking in. And I think one of the biggest things that you were mentioning before is that there was a lot of talking, but there wasn't really enough of you having the time or space to even really ask questions.
yeah, that's another bit, right? But hey, as we all say, so many years have passed, and now I can share this story, and I can see what hasn't gone well. But
Mm.
hey, I was not noticing it at the time. I wish I had a coach who would have asked me, so what does it mean? What does it mean they talked a lot? What does it mean they asked about authenticity? But hey, right. Um, shall we talk about your story?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have many.
Yeah, of course, It's like your brain starts just getting full of your own stories, but also of your clients' stories as
Mm,
well. But one particularly that stood out to me is that I I gave people more because I looked at myself as a job seeker for the longest time, and I kind of put myself in this role. I didn't have the attitude always going into interviews that like it was an equal playing field. Like I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me.
That's a tough skill to master.
Yeah, of course. And I think it took me years. And then I know when I speak to clients on it, I know it's a hard adjustment to switch this mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still in this mindset very much of being the job seeker. And I go for an interview. I show up at a company, um, and I went in, but I didn't see anyone. So I just sat down in the lobby. I was waiting, and I ended up waiting 45 minutes before someone finally came out of the back.
No, like
And
came on time,
yeah, I came on
but
time.
they
And
did come to pick you up.
yeah, and actually even a few minutes early because,
Yeah,
it's
obviously
always
you
good
did.
to be a
Yeah.
bit early. And they came out and they had forgotten that
Uh,
that they had scheduled an interview with me.
what did you think about that?
I thought, of course, it was not nice. I was sitting there like, oh my goodness, it's been like this much time, this much time. Then they finally, and I think that was the first thing they forgot the interview. And I kept telling myself, things happen, accidents happen, maybe they're really busy. So I gave a lot of grace with that.
Mm-hmm.
Even during the rest of the interview, it was very quick and speedy because obviously they didn't know I was coming. They had forgotten. And I thought, okay, I understand that this is super quick and speedy because they don't really have time because they've had to now squeeze me in because of this scheduling issues. I wasn't given a chance to ask any questions, but again, I also was thinking I'm the job seeker. As long as I'm impressing them, that's
Mm-hmm.
the key
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, and I ended up um, taking the job only to realize that that dysfunction was the norm, and it was all throughout. Um, where there was this, yeah, dysfunction about timing, about people like scheduling conflicts, about anything, and trying to get anything done in that specific company. Similar to you, I would have still taken that job. I tell clients all the time, sometimes we are in a state where we need to take the job because we have bills to pay. We don't always
But there are mortgages to pay and children at school. Yeah.
we don't have always the luxury of saying, yeah, no, they're like, I'm going to wait and hold out. I always tell people, if you can, that's always the best, but sometimes you can't. And so I took it. But similar to you, I went in thinking that, yeah, they're a bit dysfunctional, but I can help with this. I'm really good at processes. I can put some processes in place and help them to kind of improve on this situation. But I think that's an issue when you go in thinking that you can change a company. um, because it's similar to dating. I always like to tell people that, you shouldn't start a relationship with a new person thinking that that person's going to change or thinking you can help them change. Same thing with a company, because at the end of the day, if the company likes the status quo, if they like what they're doing, they're not they're going to just put the brakes anytime you try to change something, even if you think what it is the better. So I think that if I would have realized that the dysfunction was part of the norm of the company, and I would have realized that that's just their company culture, I wouldn't have exhausted myself so much pushing against a brick wall to change something that higher ups had absolutely no interest in changing.
Mm. Would you have enjoyed that job then if you were not trying?
Great question. But it's one of those things. It clearly was a toxic work culture. I clearly probably wouldn't have gotten enjoyment from it anyways. It had a lot of issues. I still needed to take it for financial security to live. Um, but I think that if I gone in with realistic expectations, I wouldn't have exhausted myself, because I exhausted myself very quickly in the beginning trying to change the status quo, um, and receiving pushback, and me having hard head not realizing that this is the company culture. You cannot change a company culture.
Yeah.
But definitely that's a great question. Would I have enjoyed it? Because I think for us overachievers, I know you and I are the same, we really struggle with this. Like we tend to look and sign up for extra projects at work because we love a challenge.
Yeah.
We
We
definitely want to
find out before the project is announced. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. We're the one often creating extra work for ourselves and extra projects because we realize this is great. Why don't we do this? Um, so I did notice over time, and I have to be careful with myself about that to set some healthy boundaries there. But in this case, I definitely realized whenever it's a toxic culture, it's important that you're not giving too much of yourself because you'll quickly burn out. And that's what I see in my clients as well. I mean, I know it's the same with you. You work with a lot of clients that are burnout, and oftentimes they burn out because they're giving too much to a
Yeah.
toxic culture.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even realize how toxic that culture is.
Yeah. So kind of similar to my story. We come in for the interview and we interpret all the smoke signs to our favor, or sometimes we do it. Trust me, I've been in an interview when I flew to a different city to meet a number of senior people, and I walked into the lobby of a big business center and said, "I'm there, such and such, meet this and this person," and no one. They kept calling the company upstairs. No one knew I was coming, so I ended up sitting reading a book for about an hour in the lobby of a business center. But what you do then, you don't jump into interpreting things like, someone was late for you to pick you up 45 minutes, because if you start going into the spiral of, oh, how could they have forgotten about me and so on, you're doing yourself a big disfavor before the interview, because if the interview does happen, you walk in wound up.
Yeah.
So I think it's your natural body reaction to protect you, and not to go into this over analyzing of the smoke signs and so on. And I think that's the danger, because you're like protecting yourself because you need to appear your best at the interview. I think what's important then is to go home and breathe out, but then look back and ask yourself, what did I not see?
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I tell clients now it's important to do a debrief. Like, excellent if you have a coach to do it with, because they can ask you questions that maybe you didn't think of to ask in the interview. They can also help you to think differently about some of the things that you maybe have heard in an interview. But I always tell people, if you don't have a coach, do it yourself. You don't have to do it right after you get out of the interview, but that day, maybe at the end of the day, you sit down and you really analyze what was actually said. What did you actually get out of the interview? What kind of information was conveyed to you? And it's not even just about verbally, but also non-verbally. How did that person respond to you? How were they engaged with you during the process and during the interview?
And also I would throw in, how did it feel for me? What body reaction did I have?
Yeah.
Was I sitting there going like, oh, yay, all excited, or was I sitting there going, oh,
The lump in the throat,
yeah, lump
feeling
in
a
the
bit like,
throat.
something is off here.
Yeah. And I know it's very difficult to notice in the moment, but it is possible to rewind and to think about it. And I think the debrief is important. And also asking the question, if I spent a year in the environment that I felt,
Mm,
would I be happy in a year if I'm asked? But let's turn this around. We talked a lot about what to notice in the smoke signs within the interview. What are the ways that you usually recommend to your to your clients, how can they research before going into the interview? What are the smoking signs to look for in the research about the company, and where to look for them?
Yeah, so great. Because I always say too, it's not just about the interview to help show if a company culture is toxic or not. You can find a lot online. Um, so there's websites like Glassdoor that has actually ratings, um, and the ratings can be really helpful to see kind of what people have said about the company, and not just the rating itself. You know what I mean? Like,
The comments.
yeah, exactly, the comments, because
Ah, they're like clandestine. I read them.
yeah, yeah, and I think, and that's what I always tell clients as well, because you could see maybe on paper, oh, it's a 3.8 out of 5. That's quite good for a company. That doesn't seem so bad. But if all the negative comments you're reading is about sales, the sales department, and you're going into sales, it's like, oh, wait, that matters. Sometimes I tell people it's also the opposite. Maybe the company rating as a whole is a 2.1, but it's only people from marketing that have written comments. And maybe in that fact, it's not the whole company culture. Maybe it's just a very unhealthy, toxic team department.
And there was an incident, and they all got upset, and they all went to Glasgow and wrote things, as we do when there's like a norovirus outbreak in the hotel where we stayed. So we all go and write the negative comments, but we very seldom write positive comments.
Exactly. I think that's important to remember as well, because just like with companies and we do the same when it comes to restaurants and hotels. Nobody thinks, oh, I've had an excellent stay or I've had an excellent meal, let's write an excellent review. So I think it is about keeping that in mind. Um, but I think that's why the comments are so key on websites like Glassdoor and other websites as well that give reviews, because also there's a new website that's quite interesting. It's a job board that is focused on flexible work and flexible work environments. So things that are hybrid, things that are remote, and it's called Flexa. It's actually founded by women, and they have a flexibility score. And this is quite interesting because it's a review overall of the companies that they're looking into and that they're vetting essentially. So I tell people, in addition to Glassdoor, you can now check Flexa for reviews. We've talked about it together. You can look on Reddit.
Yeah, you can.
People talk
Depends on the company.
Yeah, people talk about companies on Reddit, LinkedIn as well. I think that LinkedIn is a really great resource for like stealth research that you maybe wouldn't think about. But if you go to the company page, you can actually click on the section that says like people, and you can see the people that are employed by that company. And you can actually, once you click on their profile, of course, on LinkedIn, you can see how long they've been working there. And
And especially in senior roles, because if you see them churning quickly, that tells you something
yeah,
about the company culture.
exactly. Is there a high turnover rate? If there's a high turnover rate, what does that mean exactly? Is that because people are unhappy because it's a toxic culture? Or is it that the company is doing a lot of restructuring and they're maybe pushing people out? So again, not such a good company culture. So
But at least it gives you, it's very difficult to make a call, yes, this is a toxic culture, but at least it gives you some of the yellow flags that you can then research further and go into turning them into red or green, depends on what your research is.
yeah.
And for that, I love LinkedIn, and my advice always is go and research people who have worked in the company but left. And if you have someone who knows someone who can introduce you to those people, they're the best source of information, because they can talk freely about the culture. Because
Yeah,
people who still
they've
work,
already left. They don't have ties anymore. there's not this fear of repercussion. Oh, what if someone heard I was speaking out about my current employer? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's LinkedIn is the place to research. I would say, there's it takes time. There's a lot of hidden gems, but you've got to do it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's the thing, is learning how to leverage all the information that is on LinkedIn, because we're populating it ourselves. We're filling out our profiles that is telling where we work from what date to work what date. So when you just go on a company page and go through their people, it's really easy to see, okay, what's the average tenure here, just by clicking through a few profiles. You can really see, oh, it doesn't seem like people last over 1 or 2 years here. Whereas another company, maybe you check and everyone's been there from 5 to 10 years, and you're like, oh wow, okay, that's more of a substantial amount of time spent.
Yeah. And then another thing, and I know it's gonna sound very academic, and everyone does it, but I'm going to give an example. We I always go and read how the company talks about their values. And I obviously I read it on the website and so on. That's the shiny kind of front window of the shop, and there's so many researches that all the values are the same. It's just different words, and there's only 9 of them, and it's just different combinations and so on. All of that is true, but what's important, we very often read the value. We don't read how it is explained, what's expected. And I used to work for a company that had the values that worked for me in the beginning. What I did miss was that they always talked about every value from the point of I. I do this, I strive, I deliver better. And then when I started asking questions, obviously already being in the company, I was asking, like, where's the collaboration? Where's the team? And so on. And I was told that that's not in our values. Well, wait a moment. Like, why is it not in your values? And I went back and reread, and it's not. But by reading just the titles, I
It
made
seems
an
like it would be
assumption.
associated
Yeah,
with collaboration, with, you know,
right.
teamwork and being together, but actually it was their
Yeah.
view of it was very individualistic.
Yes. And again, and that's my values are collaborative, not individualistic. But it was out in the open. I didn't see it because I didn't read into it. Because you think that whatever the values are, it's window dressing, and you know it's all the same. But that's an example that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's true. Like, you never know, because sometimes it's just smoke and mirrors. They set values because everyone sets values for the company, and kind of setting these descriptions for the culture. But there are quite a bit of companies that try to follow this, but just reading a word on the surface and a definition and how that company actually applies it can be way different
Oh
than
yeah.
how you
Totally.
envision it.
And that's why probably it's also good, going back to the interviews, to listen very carefully for the language.
Mm-hmm.
Do they say, and here's a couple that are real people, that's what they said, for example, do they use the military military terms, saying it's a fight, or we're fighting for it, or we want our salespeople to feel the taste of the blood in their mouth, and that kind of stuff. Pay attention, get those words out,
Mm-hmm.
and then in your debrief, what does it actually mean if they're using those words?
I know we've talked about this before, but one of the ones that I know you love and I love too is this saying, "Work hard, play hard."
Oh
We
yeah.
work hard, but we play hard too.
Yes.
I always, when I read this, I always think, oh no, this screams that they want me to really bust my butt like 24/7.
Yes.
And this is maybe a culture that is prone to overworking, because it's like, work hard, play hard. Does that mean that I need to work hard at work And then when I'm off work, it doesn't matter if
I'm
I'm burnt out
enjoying
or
what you play
exhausted.
on.
I can then go play hard afterwards. Or
Yeah.
sometimes even their definition of work hard, play hard is that, yeah, we give you these benefits and you do what you will with it as a part of your play hard. We give you benefits to join a gym, or we give you benefits to do, have ping pong in the office or whatever it may be. But I do find sometimes their definition of working hard and playing hard is not at all what other people would envision
But
it to be.
but that's a very good question then to ask at the interview. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because I now read some of their job ads, and they say we have wonderful benefits and we have company sponsored monthly drinks.
Yeah.
Why? You know, it's just not important to me. If you are the kind of person who likes it, that's great, right?
Yeah.
But to me, this doesn't sound like a benefit, because I'll need to go somewhere after work and drink. What if I don't enjoy it?
Yeah.
And what if I want me time after work? Am I expected to be there all the time? That's a part of culture. Like, why does the company want to control me even in my free time when I go out drinking? And
Yeah. And
so,
even I know for some clients, they've told me, there's so much focus on drinking culture. I don't drink. And then I say, we have two options there. Like, you can decide that this culture is not for you, or you can still go about and continue in this, but you set healthy boundaries. Because yeah, sometimes these things aren't at all aligned with us, and how they also are. I think, just like we were saying before, how they're brought about is really important. I had a
yeah.
client one time look at me like I was stupid and ask, "Isn't this stupid?" When I said, "Ask them what they mean by this," because she was asking me in the job advert. The job advert says this. Like, going into the interview now, I mean, how am I supposed to interpret this? And I said, "Ask them."
Ask them.
And she said, "Doesn't that look ridiculous? Won't I look stupid that I'm asking them something I should know?" And I said, "No, because everyone's definition for something
Mhm.
is different. How we interpret things is different. So it's not, it doesn't." And I said, if it makes you feel better, you don't have to say, "What does resilience mean to you?" You can, or you don't, "What does resilience mean?" You can say, "What does resilience mean to you?" Or, "What does resilience mean in terms of the company value?"
Mhm.
Because of course I said, what resilience means, but you don't know how they apply their own definition to it and how they live it.
Yeah, like the story with my values, right?
Mhm.
If you only read the top line and assume, that doesn't take you far. Yeah.
What would you say um, people need to be aware of during an interview?
Um, how you are treated, the language, the setup around you, but also when you walk through the office, you need to be aware of your surroundings. Are people friendly? Are they saying hello to each other, and so on? But also, it's very important to be aware how you feel. Does it feel right? Because your intuition very often tells you the most valuable things. We just don't pay attention to them. So that's my summary of what to be aware of.
Um,
Do you have anything to add to that?
I think you really mentioned a good point about, yeah, how you feel, how you're being treated. And I think also what you said, like the environment, taking stock of the environment. I had a client one time who went to an interview, and they said they walked in, everyone had their heads down at the desk, really like zoned into the computer. When they were passing the desk, going to one of the meeting rooms for their second, third interview, they were just saying hello, and people didn't even really acknowledge them. And they made the assumption, oh, it's Monday morning, it's bright first thing, it's super
Yes.
early. Maybe it's rough because it's Monday and it's first thing. But no, it was a clear sign. After they took the job, it was a clear sign that that was how it was, because the culture was very cold. Everyone kept their head down. People were under immense pressure and stress. And it's one of those things. So I think that taking stock of the surroundings in an interview can tell you a lot, not even necessarily needing to interact, just observing.
Mhm. Totally. On this note, I can see we're getting towards the end of the promised time, but I think, sort of to summarize, it's important to know the smoking signs and to look for them. It's important to use the debrief to really ask yourself, what did you see, rather than, not in the moment when you got impressed and you were trying
Exactly.
to keep calm for the interview. Why are we doing this? Not because we're all born in the Rockefeller family, and we can pick and choose the jobs that feel good for us. Sometimes we have to take the job, but we're doing this because if we are taking the job, we are making an informed decision, a mindful
Decisions, yeah.
decision, and if we are walking into that culture, then we start working on setting our boundaries from the beginning, rather than being impressed and upset. Negatively impressed and
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah, I think something that we sometimes write off a lot, and I know you and I preach this to clients all the time, and some of my more rational, they would describe themselves, or logical clients would scoff at me when I say, trust your gut.
Mm,
Because your gut can pick up on a lot of these like subconscious messages that you're getting through an interview or through the environment. Some things that maybe you don't pick up because there's too much other noise around, because you're too focused on acing the interview, because you're too focused on making a good impression, because you are nervous. You're going in and you're nervous that you're not focusing in on those things. So I think this is one of the biggest things, is trusting your gut, that if something feels off later on after the interview, really sitting down with yourself and saying, okay, what was there
yeah,
that I didn't have time to notice in the interview, but I'm now sitting down and I'm looking through and acknowledging now.
yeah, yeah. Or if you can't do it yourself, there's always coaches who can guide you through it.
Yeah, and I think this is the key. I know that um, a lot of people have never worked with a coach before. I would say most of my clients that come to me have never worked with a coach before, so they're not sure not sure what to expect. They're not even sure that they need coaching, and I think there's this myth that we all have been primed when we become an adult. You get a job, and people, I think, tend to think with their career, it's on them to just figure it out. Um, And I think one of the things to realize, there's no shame in asking for help or asking for support. And there's nothing wrong with this. And I would love for people to start seeing it as more normal, because by seeking support through your career journey, it's actually so you can get the most from your career. You can get to the stage you want to be in. You can get what you want out of the experience.
That is a beautiful wrap up, Susan.
Any final thoughts before we let people go? I know we're a bit over time, but we love these topics. So
We can never stop. No, I think the most final thought is trust your gut, as you said. Work with your brain, but then trust your gut in the end.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Olga and I are here as a part of the She Means Business series once a month that we cover. We hope to see you again at another event. And by all means, don't be shy to reach out. Olga and I are both on LinkedIn. You're welcome to connect with us. And if you have any topics that you would like us to see covered on this series, please propose, because we're very open. We do this because we love sharing our knowledge on this topic, and we love supporting people. So
yeah, would be good to pick up a new topic. All right, and we'll see you in a month.
yes,
We'll let you know when the next one is.
yep. See you, everyone. Thanks for
Right.
joining us.
Bye.
Bye.